Guys, we're in the run up to Christmas now, and we're playing our first game. Well, not first game, second game of the 1813 campaign as set out in the General d'Armée New Germany campaign book. And we're playing the Battle of Lutzen. Charlie is around. He's playing on his computer at the moment, but he's helped in the setup, and we'll explain this game and come back with how we have done the deployment. We've been sorting out the lighting. We put one of our spotlights on rather than using the lights in the ceiling because of the flicker. So yeah, as I was saying, we were doing the deployment and we've used the campaign rules. So under these rules, the French get to deploy first. They deploy each one of their brigades by placing a dice on the table. And you can see some of these dice here. We've got a 4 down there, a 6 down here, 1 there and a 5 there. And 2 of those dice are, well, you effectively allocate 1 dice for each brigade and you can have up to 2 spares. So we've got 4 brigades for the initial French deployment. So we had 2 dummy dice and 4 actuals. They were each number is allocated a brigade. And then Charlie got to try and scout them. So he had 3 scouting opportunities and he was successful against this brigade down here. So he's identified there's a brigade of line troops in the rear, but unfortunately was not successful against the other troops in the French position. So they don't get hidden deployment, but they do get to deploy second. So Charlie, being the attacker, then has to deploy his attacking force, and he's gone for a push on the left flank. So we can see here we've got a Prussian light cavalry brigade, some hussars and some Uhlans on his far left flank. Then we've got a brigade of Prussian infantry, 2 units of musketeers and a unit of fusiliers. Then we've got 3 more brigades of Prussian infantry, and then 2 artillery batteries and a final brigade here on the left. Now for each one of these we are using glass beads. You might be able to see some of them. They represent just the morale grades of these troops, because I don't have exactly the right grenadiers, musketeers and fusiliers, so I'm using those beads to differentiate them. So you can see, for example, we have some landwehr on the table, and in 1813 there were no landwehr fighting at Lutzen, I don't believe. So they're taking the place of another Prussian regiment, so I need those to differentiate their compatibility. So Charlie's command plan is to sweep up and try and capture this hill on where you can see my iPad sitting. That's one of the Prussian objectives. Then he's going to concentrate on capturing this village and then sweep around to the left. He does have to capture 3 objectives, and that will only give him 2, so he does have to capture one of these 3 villages you can also see on his right. But Charlie does have 2 more reserve brigades and another unit of cavalry to bring on, so he may be choosing to bring those on from the right flank. For the French, we do have a unit deployed in the village here and in the villages on the flanks, but I think the 5 also is a dummy marker. So we'll now deploy the French troops and then we'll start the first turn of the game. Okay, so we've completed deployment and we can see the advantage of the Prussians having the scouting move and decision to deploy second effectively with the French defenders already on the table. So we have quite a large chunk of the French force defending this left flank, that's where they've chosen to deploy them. So we have our divisional general down here behind the ridgeline observing what's going on. We have a brigade, 3 battalions here defending this village with skirmish screens thrown out in front. Another brigade of 4 battalions defending this village on the left flank with their skirmish screen deployed out front, and the divisional artillery on the right flank to apply some potential pressure against the Prussian attack. Looking at the rest of the French deployment again, we had our reserve brigade deployed here in the centre, and then our right flank secured on this village with an artillery battery on the hill. So there's significant Prussian pressure on the French right, and the Prussian force probably are going to do a holding action. That was Charlie's original plan, and we'll see where his reserves come on. So interesting initial deployments, and we'll get on with the first turn of the game. Prussians have an advantage for ADC, so they get 1 bonus ADC. They've got 4 brigades on the table, so they get 5 ADCs. Only 3 were available this turn, so they simply put rerolls on their units to start the assault and the flanking manoeuvres moving forward. So no specialist orders like infantry assault in place. For the French, even worse, they only had 2 ADCs. They did go for artillery assault on this gun battery with no reroll. Unfortunately, that did come off, but this brigade, their reserve brigade, went hesitant. So we have an adjustment of -1 to the French initiative roll. Let's see what we get. So the French get a 9. We'll have to reroll that one. And the Allies only get a 5. So the 9 goes down to an 8, but the French do have initiative. They get to declare charges and move first. Completed first turn of movement. The French have remained garrisoning this village, as it's one of the objectives in the game, and this, although the Prussians don't notice, it's one of our weaker brigades with only recruit and reservist quality troops in it. So a lot of troops here, but not great quality. And the skirmish screen has stayed where it is, holding the edge of that wheat field. In the centre here, again, our brigade holding the village here has remained where it is. It has pushed its skirmish screen forward with a view to taking some shots against that Prussian artillery battery, but the Prussians, moving second, have moved their own skirmish screen to intercede and prevent that firing taking place against the artillery battery. The brigade down here was hesitant, so the skirmish screen wasn't able to move forward, but would like to. And here on the right flank for the French, we did some tactical juggling with our brigade commander. So he is in command range of this artillery battery, so if we need to redeploy them quickly, we can give them orders, but also in range of this skirmish screen, which allowed that to move forward. In response to those French moves, the Prussians are holding in the centre. That brigade has remained unmoved, although it is active. The brigade here, that was in the centre of the Prussian formation, is moving out to start to move towards the village, but staying out of musketry range, but has put some pressure on that skirmish screen. The 2 lines of Prussian skirmishers have moved up. They are in range of the village, but staying out of range of musketry fire in return of that, sorry, not of that village, of that battalion behind the hedge line, just in front of the village. This village, as you can see, is going to be a tough one to crack. We've got that French battalion in line ahead of it, a flanking battalion also behind the hedge line. We have a unit of engineers in the village, the divisional engineers, and another battalion holding it. So this is quite a strong position for the French, and these units are all grenadiers, so the best troops we have in the French game. So although our French right flank looks weak, it is held by our best brigade. The Prussians in response have started their turning movement, so their cavalry are moving forward to the hedge line, and the Prussian brigade that was in that gap in the centre has now moved out and is starting its flanking. Alright, we'll do a little bit of firing, we'll do the skirmishes, and I'll come back with the artillery battery. The first artillery fire of the game, we're going to fire this medium battery against the Uhlans. They are at effective range. Let's see how we do. Pretty good first shot, we roll a 10. That is 3 casualties and a discipline test against the Uhlans. Let's see how they do. They roll an 8. They're fine, but they do take those 2 casualties. There's a second French battery, which is in the centre here. This one's going to open fire against that white flagged unit. That'll be at long range. Reroll a 4. That will be no effect. In fact, I don't think it'll do anything. A 4, no, that is just simply no effect. Alright, some return fire from the Prussians. We will open fire with this Prussian battery in the centre. It's going to fire at long range against this French battalion in column. A 3, that's a fatigue casualty on itself, no benefit from that. And then this Prussian battery are going to open up against this French line. These are at effective range, but -1 because of the wall they're behind. So a 5 goes down to a 4. That will also be no effect. So no great shakes from the artillery this turn. That's the end of turn 1. We'll put that last casualty, fatigue casualty, up on the Prussian battery, and then we'll move into turn 2. My ADCs reminded me we did have artillery assault on this battery, so I rolled the 2 extra dice, and we now have 3 casualties on the Uhlans, not 2, but no change in the discipline test result. Alright, we've rolled for the next turn, and we've got 4 Prussian ADCs and 2 for the French. We'll allocate those and come back with it. Pretty much identical for ADCs. So again, the French allocated all of their ADCs. They only had 2 to this battery here, and again, it has artillery assault on. That feels our most vulnerable point at the moment, so want to get as much out of this battery as we can before potentially it gets overrun. And again, our reserve battalion is hesitant. All other French battalions are active, brigades are active. For the Russians, we got actives for all of our brigades. We allocated our ADCs to the cavalry, the infantry, and we put 2 ADCs for infantry assault on the brigade threatening the village, and that indeed came off as well, even though there was no reroll. So let's roll for initiative. Again, the French are at -1, but they do hold the initiative from last turn. Okay, so we roll a 7 for the Prussians, that goes up to an 8. They gain the initiative and will get to move first in turn 2. On the left, we can see we've done a bit of a redeployment. We've formed a continuous line with our French infantry here, trying to improve the strength of the potential defence, and we brought a battalion up to provide support. Otherwise, our artillery remains where as it was, as do our skirmish screens. This skirmish screen can't move forward because, again, unfortunately, this brigade is hesitant. Over here, our skirmish screen has to fall back as the Prussian infantry has continued to press forward towards the village, but not yet charging. The Prussian skirmishers continue to fire shots at the French, see if they can disrupt them holding this wall. Over here, we did declare a charge by our hull hands, but it was 21.5 inches away, so we were unable to complete the charge, and therefore did just a full movement towards the guns. That looks like that could be a tough experience for the all hands as they take artillery assault fire from the French battery on the hill. But again, that battery now looking pretty exposed. We decided not to pull it back and do the assault fire. That may or may not be the right decision. And over here, the Prussian infantry has continued to deploy to start its flanking manoeuvre. All right, we'll do some skirmish fire and then back with the artillery. Skirmish fire was totally ineffective, so we'll start with the artillery. Okay, first we will fire the Prussian battery, again at long range against this battalion down here. Fatigue casualty, second one of the turn. That battery clearly is not up for the fight today. All right, our second Prussian battery will open fire against this line infantry battalion behind this hedge line. That's a -1, so that's an effective range, that's a 7. So that's 1 casualty on the French. We will mark that up in a second. That's all our artillery fired, and then we will fire some infantry shots. Now, under the revised rules, infantry in column only get 1d6. On a 4, 5 or 6, they cause a casualty. We'll take that down to 2 because we're firing either at skirmishers or through the hedge line. But this brigade is firing, does not cause any casualties. And I think that's it for the Prussians. So not great firing from the Prussians this turn. Let's do the French. So we're now going to fire this battery. Let's see whether this is a close or effective range. I think it's going to be close range. It is close range with artillery assault. So the blue dice will be the regular shots and the red the artillery assault. So firing the battery at close range, we get a red, the blue is the standard shot. So a 9 is 3 casualties and a discipline test, and 2 bonus casualties. So that's 5 casualties and a discipline test. Takes the all hands up to 8. So this will be a discipline test at -2. This does not look good for the Prussians. They roll a 4, so they go unformed in front of the guns. Not a great place to be. And a good round of firing from the artillery. Artillery over here on the flank will fire again at long range against the same Prussian battalion it fired at last turn. A 5, that'll be nothing at long range. So then the final thing of the turn, this French infantry battalion will fire an inferior volley against that column. I think because half of it is out of its arc of fire, but we roll a 10. It's pretty good, even for an inferior volley. So that's 3 casualties and a discipline test against that Prussian unit. And they roll a 3. That's a retreat result. They will fall back behind their colleagues, not disappear off the table, but not great for the Prussians. Let's roll for ADCs, so both sides get an extra 1, as we both have timed reserves coming on, both have cavalry reinforcements. Not great for the French. French again, only 2 ADCs. Prussians only get 3, but they have got 2 6s there, so that gives them a bonus 1 of a 4th dice. All right, we'll allocate those ADCs and roll for initiative. Right, so we're now in turn 3, and both sides have got 1 hesitant brigade. So for the French, good news, their reserves this turn are active, but the brigade holding this village in the centre has gone hesitant. For the Prussians, their artillery battery and their brigade in the centre is hesitant, but all other troops are active. The French got artillery assault off on this gun again, despite having no rerolls. and the Prussians have all of these units now active. So let's roll for initiative. Prussians had initiative last turn, and both have one hesitant brigade, so it's 5-5, but the Prussians retain initiative as they had it in the previous turn. So for turn 3, it'll be charges and movement for the Prussians first. Reinforcements, first units of reinforcements are now available. On 3, the only charges of the turn are Prussian, so the Prussian Landwehr Brigade have charged in against this French line battalion, against this behind this wall, and the supporting hussars who in the rear of these all hands who've taken all the artillery fire have charged up against the artillery battery. It does have artillery assault, so it will get an effective chance to drive the dragoon, the hussars away. Let's see how we go as we do these two charges. Defensive fire. And again, red dice will be artillery casualties. This is a close range shot. So we roll a 5, so that's not great for our normal artillery fire. So 5 is simply 1 casualty, and the 6 takes it up to 2. So some impact on the charging at all hands, but not necessarily enough to stop the charge. Let's see what happens as they charge in. For the Prussians, do the lancers here who are unformed count as a support? So they are within support range because it's 6 inches for cavalry, but they can't actually take part in the charge because they are unformed, and they were unformed last turn. So I don't think they can, so they won't get a reroll for this. So let's roll for this combat as the Prussians try and charge the guns. Okay, so the French are doing well here. They've rolled a 9 against a 5 for the Prussians. We'll just check the modifiers, but I'm sure that unfortunately the hussars would be driven off. The guns have driven off the cavalry to behind that wall in the distance. Now let's do the defensive volley from this French infantry battalion. These are grenadiers, so they don't count as superior. They're not veterans. They just have a better morale save. But they do roll remarkably an 11 for a standard volley. The French are really up for it today. That's 4 casualties on the attacking Prussian battalions. So we put the majority on this attacking battalion. That takes 3. And the other one will take 1, and they'll have to take a discipline test. So this will be a discipline test at -1 because the Landwehr have taken 4 casualties. They pass the discipline test, so they stay formed, but the attack has taken 4 casualties so far. Right, let's see how the charge results go. Right, so this will be a charge at +2 to the French. They've caused 4 casualties, or 3 casualties on the attacking French brigade, which is also out on 4 casualties now, so that's an extra -1 modifier. Prussians have put the commanders in. The French haven't actually, because they need the commander to still be in command range of their artillery battery in case they want to move it. So +2 to the French. So they roll an 8, the Prussians roll a 5. So the French have won by 3. So infantry versus infantry. The infantry attackers retire and take 1 casualty. And the defenders stand. So both the Prussian charges thrown back this turn. Movement in turn 3, and the French are pretty content with how it's playing out. So their left flank still seems really strong and not tested. No movement for Prussian reserves on that flank. In the centre, we've just thrown the attack back by the Landwehr, who are assaulting the village. We have our brigade here in reserve, but we don't want to move it forward to take closer range damage from the Prussian artillery massed in the centre. Over here, we've also pushed the Prussian cavalry attacks back. The Prussian lancers have withdrawn. They've done a voluntary withdrawal. They've already taken 8 casualties. A few more casualties from firing from this artillery, and we potentially would have a destroyed regiment and a Falter test. So they have voluntarily withdrawn to their backline. They'll probably only play a role as supports now. And the French have also now moved on their 2 units of reserve cavalry as well. 2 units as ours to try and slow down this attack on this flank. But the garrison here still seems in good position, not really taken any casualties at all. All right, that's it for movement done. We'll now do a bit of firing. Prussian firing will continue, same targets as normal, so we'll do another long-range shot against one of these battalions. We've got to do a bit better this time. 6. I think that's just half a chance of a casualty, which does convert. So 1 casualty on this battalion, and then firing against this battalion in line at effective range. A 5 goes down to a 4. That'll be no effect. The Prussian artillery really do have damp ammunition today, so nothing from them. For the French, this battery fired. Did it fire in response to that charge? No, Oh, yes, it did. The hussars charged, didn't they? And they got driven back by the artillery fire. So we'll fire this battalion again. Long range, haven't taken any casualties yet. We'll go against our same target. And 8 goes, that might be a casualty. We'll check. If it was a half casualty, it didn't convert. So just check that, but no major artillery impact this turn. That's the end of firing in turn 3. For activations, as you can see, the Prussian assault against the left flank is now starting up. So the 1st Prussian Brigade on the left flank has arrived. So the Prussians now have serious superiority in ADCs, much larger army on the table, but not really doing much with it at this stage. Terrible roll for the French, only 2 ADCs. They've really had bad command rolls. For the Prussians, only 4, but they do have 3 6s. I think that gives them 2 bonuses. So 6 ADCs to the Prussians. Let's see how they do as we allocate those. For this. We've done activations. Same as last turn, this brigade in the centre here for the French went hesitant, but their brigade on the left, and indeed all other brigades are active. For the Prussians, their new brigade that's arrived on table on that flank has got infantry assault orders in place. That went off successfully. Their Landwehr in the centre, who were pushed back last term, have gone hesitant, perhaps as a result of that pushback. But all other brigades are active for the Prussians. All right, let's roll for initiative. And we do have artillery assault again on this gun for the French. They were the only ADCs we deployed. It's done so well. We wanted to see whether it could see off this next wave of attacking Prussian forces. So let's see what the initiative. The French clearly have the initiative as we move into this next turn. All right, charges first. For there were no charges, we realise the Prussian infantry are actually in charge rate of the guns, so they are also having a go. Let's see what we do as we get some French defensive fire. Artillery assault again in place. This is a dangerous tactic by the Prussians, maybe the end of them, but they need to break this battery and stop being pinned. Wow. Well, not such a wow. Double 6, but that's on the artillery casualty dice, not on the combat result. That's only a 7. Still a pretty good result. So at close range, that is 2 casualties and a discipline test. That goes up to 4 casualties and a discipline test with those 2 6s. So this will be a charge result now for the Prussians. These are line troops. They do have rear support, so they will get a reroll. Let's see how they do. Okay, both sides roll a 10. I'll just check the adjustments and see where we are. -2 result, which is what that turned out to be. The Prussians stopped in front of the guns and let off a volley, which they did, didn't cause any casualties to the guns. So the guns held off another assault, but we haven't broken the Prussians. Let's see what happens for the rest of turn 4. Right, starting turn 5, and the French army is clearly in confusion. We have 4 hesitant brigades. Pretty much everything's gone hesitant, apart from the Leger in this village with their associated artillery battery, which did get artillery assault off. For the Prussians, the Prussian light cavalry went hesitant, but all other Prussian units are active. So this would be a -3 for the French. They needed a -3 because the Prussians only rolled a 3, but on that basis, -3 takes the French down to a 2. So the Prussians have initiative. Let's see what they do as they start going on with charges on this flank. So we started with the Prussian dragoons charging the French hussars on the hill, supported by their own hussars. In the centre, this Prussian battalion here declared a charge on the guns. It being an undamaged battalion, the hussars here decided to declare an opportunity charge that pins the Prussians in place, and the hussars have charged into them. So don't believe anything actually goes into the guns there. Here, the Landwehr battalions have energized themselves. They have charged into this French line battalion, which has now taken 4 casualties, so it's got some penalties at least, see if they can start breaking this formation in the centre. And then over on the far left, the newly arrived Prussian brigade has crashed into this village as well. Let's see if they can do anything to capture one of their objectives on the left flank. Right, let's start with charges. We'll start supporting fire. So these guns normally could fire in support of a target being charged on their flank, but as there is an opponent directly to their front, not engaged in combat, I think they have to fire at them. So there'll be no charge for that. So we'll straight into combat resolution as these dragoons charge in against the hussars. Both are line troops, and we will commit our commanders on both sides. So this should be a straight roll off, French against the Prussians. Let's get some dice. Let's see how we do. Okay, so a better one for the Prussians. They win by 2. So on a 1 to 2, they go to melee. So that will be a straightforward melee, as a victory by 2 doesn't give the attacker any advantage. All right, we'll move those in, and then we'll try the Tsars against this Prussian. Down here, the column will get a +2 for being in column, and it does have a support. So let's see how they do. Okay, so the Prussians do well as well. So the French roll a 7, the Prussians roll an 11. That goes to 13, so they've won by at least 6. So the attacker retreats and takes 1d3 casualties. So they take 2 casualties and retreat, which will take them back to the table edge. Charge will be these Prussians here charging the French line just outside the village. They will get to do an inferior volley, again because only half the battalion can see, and at -1 because of their 4 casualties. They're all a 7, that will go down to a 6 for an inferior volley. Won't be too much. An inferior volley 6 is just 1 casualty on the attacking Prussians. Right, let's do the charge result. So the French are grenadiers, Prussians are reservists, but they haven't taken 4 casualties yet, so we'll both fight as line against line. Prussians will throw their commander in, the French won't, because we need the French commander in that position to keep control of his battery and all other units. So this will be +1 for the Prussians. I don't think you get anything for defending the hedge line in this particular circumstance. Just checking. No, I don't see that you do. We only took 1 casualty on the charge, so that'll be no effect. So this will simply be +1 to the Prussians for the commander, and +1 because the French have taken 4 casualties. So +2 to the Prussians. Well, the French roll a double 6. It really is their day today, so that'll be a destiny test, and it'll be a 6 against an 8. So they will win that combat. That's -4. So the attacker will retire and take 1 casualty. First we get some defensive fire from the village. We cause 2 casualties, so that's not bad. And then we move straight into combat because there are no charge results, of course, when you're attacking a built-up area. So 2 casualties on the French, and we'll resolve that in the melee section. The Prussians have prolonged their guns forward, so they're starting to move their central assault forward to put pressure on the French centre. So they've chosen not to fire them. This French battery down here is also not open fire, as everything is at long range. Skirmishers have fired, and the skirmish screen down here for the French has pulled back because it's down to 2 bases. We don't want to cause a falter test and vacate that village, as that screen might get destroyed, and we don't want to break any more units up to reinforce the screen. So final thing will be firing these guns against the green flagged Prussian unit. So we roll an 11, that's pretty good, with 2 extra casualties. So this is going to be another devastating set of shots by this battery on the hill. So an 11 at a close range is 4 casualties, so that's 6 casualties, and the discipline test against this lead unit, that takes it up to 10. Wow, it's nearly broken. This will be a test at -2 on the Prussians. They roll a 10, that goes down to an 8, so they stay in place. But this battery really has been a good gamble to take for the French. It's done no end of damage against the Prussians. We thought we'd overrun it really quickly. Really got that absolutely wrong. And this bastion on the French right-hand end of their line is still holding strong. All right, let's do the melee combat as the final thing in terms of here. This will be 5 against 5. Both are line units with no modifiers. Let's see how we've done. So the Prussians only caused 1 casualty. The French have caused 3. So Prussians have lost by 2. This really seems their fate in this game. So on cavalry versus cavalry combat contact, the French cavalry return to their own lines, which is pretty much where they are at the moment, and the Hussars drive the Prussian dragoons away, and they are forced to retreat. Down here, it'll be 5 dice against 4. The Prussians lose 1 for attacking a built-up area, and the French have not yet taken any casualties, so their reservists still fight at full effectiveness. So the French cause 2 casualties, the Prussians cause none, so another victory for the French, and the Prussians are forced to retreat. A bit of a tragedy for the Prussians because that was a retreat result, and we had our commander attached, not for any good reason because he didn't give them any bonuses, but we did. We took a retreat result. I rolled the risk to general test. We rolled an 11, so this brigade is now faltering, so we'll have to take a falter test on this newly arrived Prussian brigade that's failed to break into the village. So just looking at the table again a bit from the Prussian side, it's really not looking good. All their attacks on the left flank have just taken serious casualties to that redoubtable brigade on the hill. We've tried to attack this village and been thrown back twice now, is it? And we've now tried to attack the village on the right and not gone anywhere. I think time for some lunch. The Prussian commander will revisit his plans and see where we go as we start turn 6. Right, we're at turn 6, so Napoleon's arrived on the field with his guard. However, the French commander, Ney, has decided not to appeal to Napoleon for reinforcements, as, to be honest, he doesn't feel he needs it. He's holding off the Prussian attack successfully. Foolhardy or not, we'll see how that goes, and if they manage to hold this, I'm sure that will play well as we move further into the campaign. All right, the Prussians do have the option of 1 more brigade, and I think they're going to have to call on that. They need to try and turn the tide of this battle. It's not looking good at the moment. All right, turn 6. Let's see who gets what activation. For turn 6, we've got a +1 bonus for the Prussians. All their brigades are active, no special orders. For the French, we again have put artillery assault on our resolute battery here. That's, I think, probably for the 6th turn in the row. And again, it's come off. It did have a reroll, but didn't need it. But the light cavalry, we also gave a reroll to, and unfortunately they failed twice. So the French are on -1 and their light cavalry regiment is inactive, but the French still retain initiative. All right, let's see what happens as we do charges and movement in turn 6. So with the French cavalry being hesitant, this infantry brigade have decided to give it another go. This really is foolhardy, but let's see how they do. French will do their defensive fire. No bonuses this time, and only an 8, so not too devastating. The Prussians may still get in after this. So an 8, let's have a look. I think that's 2 casualties in a discipline test. Battery, close range 8, 3 casualties and a discipline test, but they will keep charging in. Let's see how that charge goes. So for the discipline test, we rolled a 5, which means we're unformed. The charge continues, but that's going to be not a great set of modifiers for us, but we do have the benefits of 2 rerolls. So for 3 casualties in the turn, that's -2. It is the first 3 casualties on that regiment, so that's -2, and -2 for being unformed, that's -4. That particular battalion is veteran, so that takes it to a -3. So let's see how we do. -3 for the Prussians, but they do get 2 rerolls. Pretty good for the Prussians. They get a 9. We're going to try and do a reroll. I think we will. We have got 2. Yeah, we're going to leave it on that. So that's a 10 -3 takes us down to a 7. Unfortunately, the French rolled an 8. So that's still a -1. Infantry stops and volleys. See what they do. They do 1 casualty. First casualty against that battery, but they are stuck at the bottom of that hill and still can't break this French position on the crest. No assaults going in. The firing relatively restrained this turn, and we did cause a couple of casualties and a disorder actually on this Lambert battalion with the fire from our French skirmishers down here. And these Prussian guns are now starting to get within effective range. So the French battery opened up here, caused a couple of casualties against that unit in the centre with a black and white flag. And the Prussian guns, as they prolonged forward, did not fire, but potentially are now, or not potentially, are now in effective range and will be opening fire pretty soon. All right, that's it for turn 6. Let's move on to initiative and activations for turn 6. The advantage in number of ADCs, the Prussians have a +1 bonus on the initiative roll. We have artillery assault again on our battery here for the French. Otherwise, we just went for raw rolls across the front, but we managed to activate all our brigades other than this one here, our reserve brigade as it's been called. For the Prussians, everything is active. So -1 to the French. Yes, the Prussians do it. The Prussians have initiative at the start of turn 7. Can they turn things around? And the Prussians are getting desperate. So this newly arrived Prussian brigade over here is charging into the village. The Prussian centre has continued to push forward its guns. It's now potentially within close range of this battalion next turn. It may assault it. We've charged in just with 1 battalion because we had a disordered battalion in the middle which disrupted our formation there, and we've charged in with our dragoons. So let's do the charges and potential French counter charges. The counter charge at this stage is the French going in here. They were down here, so they were to the front of this unit, so even though it looks like a flank attack now, when they started the charge they were to the front. So they've charged into the front of this disordered Fusilier battalion. But let's start with Dragoons as they charge in against the Hussars. Hussars have taken 1 casualty, Dragoons have taken 3. So this will be a straight roll off, no bonuses on either side. Prussians do have the support from their Hussars, so let's see how they do. Prussians do not do great. Let's see if we can re-roll that 3 to something better. No, a 7 against a 10. The French have won the combat again. These Hussars really are on top form today. So that's a -3 result for the cavalry. So the attacker melees unformed and the defender countercharges and will melee with Elan. Let's see how they go. Charge down here. We are veterans for the Prussians, so that'll give us a +1, and we've got our commander in there +2. Where should we put the commander for the Hussars? We'll put them into this one as well. So that simply takes it to +1. Now the Prussians get a +2 for being in column, but a -2 for being unformed. So this is a straight +2 to the Prussians. But again, they get a reroll, which they may well need. The French get an 8. Their cavalry is doing well. Let's see how this reroll goes. It's even worse. 8 against a 6. So they've won by 2, but there was a +1 modifier, so it's just a 1 by 1, so it's -1. So that will be cavalry versus infantry. Cavalry melee with Elan, and the defenders will melee unformed. So some decisive countercharges by the French cavalry on this flank this turn. This could have a dramatic impact on the outcome of this game. Right, and then we've got a charge against the French line here. So we've now taken 7 casualties in this battalion. So they'll do a defensive volley. Again, this will be an inferior volley because only half the battalion can fire. That'll be no casualties on the Prussians. So the Prussians may have an advantage here. They're fighting grenadiers, they're line infantry, they're on 3 casualties. So for the charge results, this will be a straight -1 to the French because of their casualties. The French are on a 7 and the Prussians are on an 8. So the Prussians have won by 1. So that will also be a melee, and they will melee with Elan, and the French this time will have to melee unformed. So the Prussians may be en route for their first victory on the outskirts of that village. And then finally we've got some defensive as they try and charge in against the built-up area on the other flank. No casualties from the defensive fire, so the Prussians indeed charge into that built-up area to be resolved in the melee phase. Right, now let's do some firing. Hussars, they get 1 more dice. The Dragoons lose 1 for being unformed. The Hussars gain 1 for being elite. Let's see what we've got. So we've got, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 casualties against 1. So they have 1 by 3. That'll be a broken result, I am sure. 1 by 3. We take the ground and the loser routes. That'll be a falter test for the Prussians. The Prussians are really lucky this isn't a flank attack. So as they're going in the front, the French simply have 1 extra dice. My gosh, both sides do well. Prussians cause 4 casualties. French only cause 3. So the Prussian infantry holds off the charging Hussars. It's a casualty difference of 1. Cavalry versus infantry. Cavalry return to their own lines, and the infantry can hold where they are. Not sure they want to, but they will. Alright, we'll apply those casualties and do that. On our left flank, the Prussians try and break into the village down here as well. How do they do? Well, the Prussians cause no casualties, the French cause 2. They have thrown the Prussians back yet again. Doesn't look like getting hold of this village anytime soon. Before we do the activations, we forgot to do the combat down here. So the French here will have 4 dice, and they've taken 5 dice to start with. Lose 1 for being unformed and 1 for 7 casualties. The attacking Prussians have 3 casualties, so they will attack with 5 dice. So the Prussians have the advantage here as they try and throw the French out of their first defence. Prussians cause 4 casualties, French only cause 1. They will cause that French unit to break. Our plans for the Prussians, for the French rather, all French units had activated, and I had 2 ADCs set aside to do artillery assault on my guns, but I'm going to have to do them as a filter test against this critical braid in the centre. Well, that was a 6, and it rolled back to a 3. Do we want to re-roll that? I think we do. A 1! Disaster! Savoir-qui-peur. The Prussians have broken this French brigade holding this side of the village. On the left-hand side, things look pretty stable. The Prussians have been thrown back again from the village, and the French defence looks in good shape. These 2 brigades are not actually hesitant, so I need to turn these commanders around. They went active this turn. So those commanders are active, as indeed is the Prussian commander facing them. The Prussians in the centre here are also active, as is the French Reserve Battalion brigade here in the centre. On the right, our garrison of the village has broken and is faltering still, having taken a savoir-qui-peur result. But also the dragoons, who were broken and routed this turn by the French hussars, also failed their test and have fled off the table along with their horse artillery battery. So this flank, which was compressed with troops, is now much thinned out. So we have only 3 failed Prussian battalions and brigades and 1 failed French brigade. So this is a -2 result for the Allies. They go down to a 3. French have a 6 after adjustments. So the French have initiative. Let's see what they do in this next situation time for the Prussians. Looking for a lucky result. They're assaulting here with their battalions again, trying to get into the village. No luck so far, but we'll see how they do. Another battalion, this time from the Central Brigade, is assaulting this village, see if they can get in. The Landwehr can't, because they're hesitant this turn, and down here the French have hit this battalion in the flank with their hussars, and we've gone for the unformed battalion, see if we can do better again this time with our line regiment that retired last turn, or fell back to their own lines last turn. Alright, let's see how we do with all these various combats in turn 9. Right, doing the flank attack here, so it's -2 adjustment to the French because they have 11 casualties, and -4 because they've been charged in the flanks, that's -6. We're not going to put a commander into the French, so -6, and then it goes down to -2 because they're in column. I don't know whether they lose that because they've been charged in the flank, but I'll say that. Alright, the French do get the chance for a reroll. Which one are we going to commit the reroll to? Should have decided before I did the dice roll. I think we'll do it to this unit. So the Allies will reroll that 1 to another 1. Okay, so the French win by 4. Cavalry versus infantry. They will melee with Elan, and those infantry will melee. And the charge down here. Both sides have got 6 casualties, so both will be on -1. And the column advantage will be cancelled out for being unformed. Wow, the French roll a double 6, so that'll be a destiny test, and they've won by 3, so I think that's the same. They will melee with Elan, and the Prussians will melee unformed. And let's roll a destiny test. On a 3, not sure what a 3 is off the top of my head. On a 3, we can recover a casualty, so that will take us down to 5, which is always welcome. Alright, so 2 positive melees for the French cavalry there. We'll see how they do later in the turn. Alright, any other charges? No other charges that don't automatically go in, because charges automatically go into built-up areas. So we'll come back. Casualties from firing this turn. Our skirmishers caused a casualty against one of those attacking battalions of the Prussians over there. Down here, the French guns just took a low on ammo result. The Prussian guns opened fire against this battalion and caused 1 casualty. and caused 1 casualty against this battalion with that set of guns. They did damage last turn by softening up this unit and causing the break in the centre. Otherwise, nothing for the skirmishers to fire at, and they couldn't move forward because they're all hesitant. So we're on to combats. Let's start with the cavalry combats on the right. We'll start with the Red Hussars first. Okay, this is 6 dice to 2, because the French have caused so many casualties. Wow, the French wiped that unit out, and they are broken. That'll be a fault test on this brigade for next turn. Last time this is a straight roll-off. I'm doing it the right colours the right way around. This time French are blue. Let's see how we do. French do well. They cause 3 casualties. Prussians only cause 2. So the French take the Prussian casualties up to 9. The French go to 7, and winning by 1. Cavalry versus infantry. The infantry retreat, and the cavalry take the ground. Not enough of a victory to destroy the cavalry, but the infantry. The Prussians assaulting the village in the centre. Just need to get another blue dice for the French. French and the Prussians are on the same morale level. Prussians simply lose 1 for assaulting a built-up area. Good result for the Prussians. Their first victory. They win by 2, and I think they may kick the French out of this village. And same on this flank. Prussians going in. French get 1 more dice. But result for the French this time, they caused 2 casualties. Prussians only cause 1. Let's see what happens on a difference of 1. In the built-up area, the attackers can choose to fight on, which I think they're going to do. It's going to be a big melee. Both sides can throw in 2 extra attacking battalions. So I'll roll these. And I've got 5 more dice for each side to roll. So let's find 5 misses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the Prussians. Okay, pretty good. They've got 8 hits. And for the French, wow, they're doing pretty well already. So I've got 5 more dice to roll for the French. And then that's the 5th of them. Wow, French get 10, Prussians only get 8. French win and throw the Prussians back. Prussians have been thrown back to the table edge, 3 retreating battalions as they were all thrown back, so that will be a fault test on that brigade as well. All right, so let's roll for initiative as we move into turn 10. This could be pretty much the culmination of this. We've got the destiny tests for the French. All their brigades are active. And we've got a fault test to do for this brigade in the centre. We've allocated 2 ADCs. Let's see what they can do. This is my Leger brigade. A 4 is a rally result. I think we might stick at a 4. On a regular troop, rally. Retreating units rally, but routing units disperse. They are retreating units, so all of those French units will now rally. It remains hesitant this turn, but will be active next turn. We also got a forwards unit off on this infantry brigade in the centre for the French. All right, for the Prussians, the infantry brigade in the centre went hesitant. They did raw rolls on everything else, and that was active, but we have 2 fault tests to do. First for the brigade in the far distance there that got thrown back from the village. We roll a 3, that will cause them to retire off table, so we'll roll again. We roll a 4, that means retreating units rally, so they can stay on the table edge but are hesitant this turn. And then we've got the brigade on the right here where we had that unit destroyed. Savoir Keeper, we will re-roll a 4, that is a rally, so they remain hesitant as well, but don't flee off the table. So we now have 3 allied brigades that are hesitant. But they still have initiative this turn. Not that I think it's going to do them a great deal of good, but initiative for the Prussians in terms of victory conditions. It's not too bad for the Prussians. They have not been able to force their way into this village, but with a lucky break, they surprised the French and have captured this one. Although they are being counterattacked by this battalion this turn. Let's see if they can hang on in the village there. Over here again, the Prussians have captured the village now, as the French were forced out. We'll see whether the French counterattack can make any progress. Down here looks not so good, but the French are back to holding only 3 of the 5 objectives. This hill looks very safe. I think the key for the Prussians is to try and capture that village and see if they can hang on to this 2 in the centre. Not impossible, but I think their army is close to breaking. So let's see what happens next as we do shooting. We haven't done the charge results down here, have we? So let's do the charge results down here first. So we've got, we're going to go with the flanking hussars first, because they've probably got the best chance of breaking this unit. They will be on +4 for a flank charge, +2 for the unit being unformed, so that's +6. And the Prussians are on no casualties. We are on 2, so +6 to the French. Let's see how they do. Wow, Prussians get double 6, so they get a destiny test. The Prussians lose by 1 though, so on a 1 to 2, cavalry versus infantry, there will be a melee with Elan. Now let's roll the other charging unit. Yeah, they don't do any different, so that's the result that will stand. Let's see the destiny test for the Prussians. They get a 10, so they will cause a fault test on the French brigade at the end of the turn. So we might be on double fault tests if they lose this hand-to-hand combat. All right, not as good as the French hoped for, as their hussars charged into those musketeers. All right, we will now get on with fire. French guns caused some casualties and caused this Prussian unit disorder in the centre. Down here, the Prussian guns have caused more casualties on these 2 French units, but they passed their discipline tests. So that's it. We caused another casualty on the Prussians over there with our French skirmisher screen, but not much skirmisher firing going on here. So let's do the hand-to-hand combat as we start with this melee here. So 4 dice for the Prussians, they lose 1 for being unformed. For the French, 5 dice, 6 dice, because they are meleeing with Elan and they haven't reached a casualty tipping point. So 6 to 4, how can the Prussians stand up? So the Prussians do 2 and the French cause 3 casualties. So the cavalry have won the combat. So on cavalry versus infantry, the defenders retreat and the cavalry can take the ground. And by 1, they may well have won by more, because we have the other infantry cavalry unit which also charged in, which will be on 4 dice because it's not a flanking attack. Yeah, we've caused another 3 casualties, so we've won by 4 then. So on cavalry versus infantry, the cavalry are dispersed. Sorry, the infantry are dispersed and the cavalry take the ground. That'll be another fault test, and this brigade is now broken. The French counterattack continues to crush the Prussian left flank, as this brigade is now broken. Lost 2 of its 3 battalions, and it'll have to take a fault test, and I think broken brigades that take fault tests automatically flee. So that brigade will be gone at the start of next turn, and that opens up a potential attack on those highly damaged lancers, which probably also will just retire off table. Otherwise, we've got the combats to do as the Prussians seek to defend their villages against French counterattacks. Let's see how we do. All right, we'll start with this one. So it's just a single French battalion attacking. Prussians get 5 dice, but it'll be down to 4 because they're unformed in the first turn of occupation, and the French also get 4 in their first turn of assault. Let's see how we do. French only cause 1 casualty, Prussians cause 3. The French are driven back and retreat. This isn't a broken brigade, I forgot. We have the Fusilier battalion deployed in skirmish formation, so we still have 2 battalions on the table. So let's do their fault tests. They roll a 5, they rally, but they will be charged this turn, so that will be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, so Prussians have every unit active, French have 1 distant unit. Let's see where we go. That's a draw. Who had initiative last turn? I think it was the French. So the French get to go again first this turn. Okay, so we've got a small French battalion charging into this village here, trying to recapture it, and we've got the 2 units of hussars charging again. So let's do these charge results. Again, hussars against this unit of musketeers. This will be at +1 because we both are attaching our general, and the Prussians have 6 casualties. Their unformed status will offset their I'm just looking at the result. Their unformed status will offset their column. So the French roll double 6. That is a destiny test, and they have won by more than 6. So that'll be an overrun result, and we can charge on. All right, let's do that to that unit. All right, with a charge on of 23, we have definitely caught those fleeing musketeers. They can only go back 21 inches, so we've crashed through them. And you catch a fleeing unit, it is destroyed, and then we have crashed into these lancers. Lancers are on 9 casualties. So let's do the charge results as we crash in. So this will be a charge result as +4. We are cavalry charging on. The lancers have got -2 for the number of casualties they've got, and we are battle cavalry. They are campaign cavalry. So the French get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Again, they have won by 6. That is victory. Those lancers are driven from the table, and the hussars charge on again, so they will go to the table. The skirmishers have evaded to back there, so we get to charge on with this unit, see how far we go. Another not bad roll, 10, 19 inches. Let's see where we go with our 19. It's looking horrible for the Prussians on this flank, so as we pursued 19 inches, the evade move for the skirmishers is only 18, so they were then caught and forced to retreat again, and they then would retreat off table, and the other unit was also overrun, but it retreated and stopped at the table edge. So the brigade is definitely broken now. It only has one small unit of skirmishers left. When they get to the Falter phase, they will disappear. And we now have French cavalry in the rear of the Prussian formation. All right, that's charges completed. We'll now move on and do normal movement and firing in turn. So final action of the turn, we've got this small battalion, Forlorn Hope, really charging into the Prussians who newly occupied this village. Let's see what we get. That should be 3 dice, because we're a small unit attacking with 2 casualties against an unformed unit with 4 casualties, so only 3 dice for the Prussians. Right. As well. So how did we do? We got a French victory. French have caused 3 casualties, Prussians only caused 1. The French have ejected the Prussians from the village. French, we rolled for initiative. The brigade in the centre here is hesitant. All others are active, including the light troops to move up to reinforce the village, and our cavalry. For the Prussians, the Landwehr are active. The unit in the centre is hesitant, and the unit on the right is active. And the French have initiative. Let's see what they do with their charges. Surprisingly, the French have charged into the flank of these Prussian units, so this will be +4 to the French. And let's just check how many casualties we've got here. So -1 actually for the Landwehr. Yeah, -1. So it'll be on +3 for the French as they do this charge, and the French have a reroll. Right, so the French get a 7 against a... So they've won by +3, 10. So they have won by 6. So that's victory. So they've broken that unit. And they take D6 casualties and rout. And then we can charge on. Let's see how far we charge on, but I'm sure we'll go into another line infantry unit. Wow, that's a pretty good roll. 15 + 12, 27 inches. Let's move those. So we crash into the flank of the next unit. Let's see how we do. This again will be at +4. Prussians, again, French do really luckily. The French have rolled remarkably well this game. 9 + 4 is 13. That's another victory. Another dispersed Prussian unit, and it routs, and that brigade is now on 50% cavalry. When they get going in the flank, really are devastating. Okay, so this will be another charge. This one will be at +6 with a reroll because the unit is unformed. Right, okay, so that is a 6, so we haven't got a victory, so we will reroll the one. A 7 with a +6, that is victory again. That's another rout, another unit destroyed, and they can continue their charge into the flank of the guns. Where we were rolling dice is where the combat started, so we've now gone through 1, 2, I think it's 3 units of Landwehr into the flank of these guns. So this will be a +4 against the guns. Again, that takes a 10 up to an 11. Again, another great die roll, no unfortunate results. The guns are wiped out, and the final element of the charge is into the flank of this 2nd brigade. All right, let's just do that. And then the final extreme end of their charge, that was an astounding charge on range. I think it wasn't it 2 5s and 3 6s, or 3 5s and 2 6s. Anyway, a massive charge, and this is the final unit they contact at +4. Okay, not so good, but they will re-roll the 2 to a 7. +4 is an 11. That is another victory, another unit broken. They will also rout. They take 3 casualties and will rout off table, but that is the end of the charge. But another Prussian brigade on a 40. Here we are. So the French have regained this village. They've performed I don't think I've ever seen a cavalry charge like that. An astounding set of dice rolls, not a single adverse roll in the combat. 27-inch charge range, broke 4, I think, line battalions. Having their supports with them, giving the reroll, really helped. You can move your supports with you when you do a charge on result, and you can't do another charge on, but you can hit any units within the charge distance, so that repeated smashing into the French units was just, into the Prussian units was just devastating. So definitely the units of the game have got to be this Hussar Brigade, a resounding victory for the French. They have broken the Prussian assault. They've only lost one objective, which is this battalion in the middle. They will be subject to a Falter test this turn because their brigade has had a unit routed, and we have the other brigade on the far right flank, which was unable to take the village. So great resistance by the French, and a really successful result. Hope you enjoyed this game, and I'll see you again next time.